the excitement, thrills, danger, and mystery vicariously through a good detective story is something that most people enjoy. However, for Mr. Robert Young, it has been his everyday life. Bobby has a background in law enforcement and is now the CEO and founder of Covert Results, a private investigation firm in Nashville. When we return, we'll chat with Mr. Young and find out more about him. Give us your name and your professional title.
Robert Young. I'm the founder and CEO of Covert Results.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Young. Can you give us a bit of background on who you are and how you became a private investigator?
So I am a Nashville native, grew up just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and went to Middle Tennessee State University. I knew I wanted to do something in law enforcement. I just didn't know exactly what. So I remember being in college and I would see a patrol car, a uniformed police officer writing someone a ticket. I knew I did not want to be that guy because no one likes that guy. No one likes tickets, right? But I knew I wanted to do something in the investigative field. Well, it was sort of easy for me because I grew up watching my dad, who was a railroad detective with CSX. He was a policeman, a federal policeman, and I knew I wanted to follow in his footsteps. So after I got my degree at MTSU in criminal justice, I then applied with the Metro Nashville Police Department. I knew there was many opportunities and many different units that I could go to. So I joined the Metro Nashville Police Department in 2007, went through a long, rigorous training, 25 weeks worth, and then graduated from the academy and hit the streets. So I still knew that I had to be that uniformed officer that wrote tickets on the side of the road, but I used it as a stepping stone to get to where I wanted to be, and that was in narcotics work. I just love the idea of working undercover, wearing shorts and a t-shirt, growing a beard. No one knew who I was and what I was doing, and there's nothing more exhilarating than getting a search warrant and taking a metal ram and knocking on a door at 6 a.m. and getting all the drugs and guns off the street. There's nothing more blood pumping than that, I guarantee it. So I was able to achieve that, and I did that for a decade. Narcotics work, day in, day out. I worked my way up to the most elite unit that there was, called the 20th Drug Task Force. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore, mainly because of politics. But that unit focused on wiretaps, and that's the most complex type of case that you can work. It's a lot of hard work, but I was able to be the lead detective on one of the largest cocaine seizures in Nashville history. A short time after that, as I stated, the unit just totally went away. It literally vanished because of politics. And it left a sour taste in my mouth. You know, maybe a chip on my shoulder, so to speak. And I returned to patrol, worked my way back up. It took me a couple years to get back to a undercover drug unit, and I spent some time there as well, made some great cases, and then our supervisor was found to be conducting illegal activities and was arrested. Our entire unit was then disbanded once again. So at this point, I'm on the police department just over 10 years, about 11, and I knew it was time for a change. I knew that I wanted to do something else. I was tired of getting moved around. You know, I worked very hard as a professional in the law enforcement industry, and I knew that if I took my work ethic into the private field, that I would succeed. And it's no easy choice, because I'm telling you, if you're in government work, you rely on that check and that insurance, and that's a comforting feeling when you know you get paid every other week. So it's a very difficult decision to leave that type of work, that type of guaranteed work, and just basically leap out into entrepreneurship. And that is one of the toughest things I've ever done.
That's really interesting. So, what aspect of being a PI are you most passionate about and why?
I would say that not the cliche answer of finding the truth, because that's what our job is, but the thing I'm most passionate about is just figuring out what happened. So essentially it is figuring out the truth, but also putting the pieces of the puzzle together. We've had probably 400 plus cases in the last 3 years of business, and I can tell you that some were very challenging and some were not as challenging. But with being a private investigator, every single case is different. There's none that are the same. Yes, you have your murders. Yes, you have assaults. Yes, you have child custody or divorce. And the category is the same, but the players are different. The victims are different. The defendants are different. The stories are different. The weapons are different. Everything's different. So that's something that's very challenging about what we do, is that each and every case is different.
Awesome. So, for a Gen Z watching that might be interested in your field, what steps would you advise them to take to start their career?
For Gen Zs that might be interested in the private investigative industry, the word of advice I could give you is do your research. So you don't have to have a law enforcement background to be a private investigator. Yes, there are rules and policies and procedures to own your own private investigative company, but you can also do internships or apprenticeships with a reputable private investigative company to get knowledge and experience to then become your own private investigator. So that's one of my goals, is to shadow, mirror, help aspiring private investigators to then maybe 5-10 years down the road, they can then open their own company, or even maybe Covert Results will franchise. So, there's always an opportunity, and it's a great field of work. And like I said, it's very challenging. You have to think on your feet at all times, and it really puts your brain to work.
That's some great advice. So, what are some of the services that you provide at Covert Results?
So we do private investigations, armed security, and some training. So currently, myself and 2 other private investigators with the company Covert Results, we are state certified handgun instructors. So we can come in, we can teach people how to properly utilize a firearm, how to properly store it, and then also even go beyond that in obtaining your either concealed carry permit or enhanced handgun carry permit. Basically just providing that expert knowledge to someone that really wants to protect themselves, whether at their home or out in the public. Most of what we do currently is the private investigative work. I would say 65% of what we do currently is PI cases, and currently we have about 100 plus cases going on at one time. We've got, I think we're up to 12 licensed private investigators. And I say licensed because it's very important. Part of owning a business is you need to be licensed and insured. And of course, we have all of our licensing, insurance, and credentials to effectively run a successful company.
Could you talk to us about your new book that's coming out?
So last year I published the first edition. It was titled Gray, Rise and Fall of 1422. And it was a book, it was, I would say, a raw book where it was just kind of put together. I mean, I published it, self-published, and this year, like 2020, as if we didn't have a whole lot going on already, I took a little bit of time in reworking the first edition. So I actually just published it last week, and good old Amazon will have it to you in a matter of 48 hours. So here's the book. It's titled The Good Line, and there's two meanings with that. Obviously, from the picture, you can tell the good line meaning a line of cocaine, but also here's a cell phone. Well, as I mentioned, I did wiretaps, and this was the largest cocaine seizure in Nashville history. So this book chronicles the large wiretap case where we wiretapped over, I think, 19 different phones. Basically, I lived other people's lives for nearly an entire year. So it was very difficult, but it was very rewarding at the same time. However, there was a steep price to pay with what went on in this case. You have to read the book to know about it. We also have a video trailer on YouTube that is amazing. So it was very difficult, the case as a whole. You know, just to give you a little insight, we had a leak in the very beginning where someone was leaking information to our targets. The point is there was so many obstacles to overcome in this case, and I really feel like that the book itself can apply to many people who have worked so hard to get somewhere and then get knocked down. And what do you do to overcome that? Well, you just keep going. You jump over the hurdles and you just keep pressing forward and pressing forward. And ultimately, the things that I was able to accomplish with the police department and in law enforcement led me to where I'm at today.
That is so exciting. Thank you so much for telling us about it. So, what have you found to be the most challenging aspect of running your business?
Everything is the short answer. No, but to be very specific, the most challenging thing is growing. And when I say growing and getting bigger, things are moving more fast, everything's getting more challenging, but the biggest challenge for me thus far has been managing people. And when I was with the police department, I had gotten skipped over on a list, a promotion list. And I left the department with a chip on my shoulder saying, did the chief or deputy chiefs not feel that I could be a leader? So I wanted to sort of prove myself and others that I could be a leader. And I think in a way that's good to sort of have that chip that fuels me to even work harder to show I can be a great leader, I can manage people, and I can grow this company very largely, basically. And that's really what fuels me is I want to be a great leader, but it's challenging, and managing 10, 12 different people is very difficult.
Totally. Definitely understandable. So, are there any good books or media that you would encourage young individuals to expose themselves to in the pursuit of a career in PI?
Well, you can actually start with reading my book, where you can get on Amazon, The Good Line. I would also suggest taking at least a month. I took 3 and doing all of my research as being a private investigator. I wasn't naive to think that I could leave law enforcement, leave a government position, and just open a business and it's going to skyrocket and do great. I took 3 months to get all the licensing together, to do my research. There are great resources out there, so many different websites, but I would say look for blogs. You know, we write a blog every week on our website that we publish on covertresults.com. We write blogs that will be helpful, that, you know, they're just short reads that where you're going to pick up on something that you may be able to put in your toolbox, right? So if you're absorbing all this information and then taking notes on how you can be a better private investigator, then that is what I would suggest, is just, you know, the Gen Zers, they know the internet very well, so I would just, research.
Thank you so much for the recommendations. Do you have any final thoughts for a Gen Z watching?
Yeah, just a couple things. I would say learn to be a good interviewer. And it's something that can come natural or something that happens over time. And being on camera is one thing that's very intimidating. I had to learn it myself from being undercover for more than a decade. Now I'm on Facebook Live or Instagram TV or, doing this interview. And all of these things help me grow and get better as a speaker and as an interviewer. So as a private investigator, one thing you may do is testify in court. And if you're testifying in court, you want to sound very intelligent, very clear and concise to the judge, to that jury, to prosecution defense, and that's something that you have to practice over time. There's one app that we utilize as private investigators as our team, and it's called Marco Polo. I'm not a representative of them, I don't get paid for saying that, but it's a video chat app that records, and it's just good to see yourself on camera talking, and then you can go back and play that and see how you sound. Are you saying a bunch of ands and ums, and do you sound intelligent or not? But send that to your friends or a group of friends or professionals in your field or other investigators, and get some feedback, constructive criticism. So I would say a tip would be learning how to speak and how to interview. And the second and final tip I would say is go old school. Now what I mean by that is if you're in the private investigation field, there's a lot you can do on the internet, a lot. You can find out pretty much everything about anyone that you want. But there's still the old school method of knocking on doors, boots on the ground, interviewing people to figure out your final goal. So I would say do your research up front. If you're investigating a case or someone, do that internet searching. And then lastly, don't forget to go out into the field and knock on the doors, because that's where you're going to find the gold nuggets.
A client once said, Robert and his team are knowledgeable, professional, and hardworking. We have utilized his services multiple times and have never been let down. If you're interested in a career in private investigation or need to utilize Covert Results services, contact Mr. Young at robert@covertresults.com. See you next time on Jobvation.